Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on yet another bullpup rifle, and today we're going to be taking a look at the IWI, or the Israeli Weapons Industries, Tavor X95. Now, I understand the X95 is kind of the second generation of the original Tavors, which I actually shot one of the originals when they came into the country, and it was not a very pleasurable experience for me. It was a very gassy rifle. Now, granted, it was the very first bullpup that I ever shot, and I understood the limitations of that design, but I did not like it at all, and I did not understand why so many people were so enamored by it, because when I shot it, I felt it was a very uncomfortable rifle to shoot. I guess not from an ergonomic standpoint, but I just had so much gas coming back in my face, it would burn my eyes, it had a certain smell to it, and I'm thinking I really couldn't take this to the range often and enjoy it. And so the Tavor never interested me whatsoever. And then not too far in the future, they came out with the X95, and I think they tried to address some of the issues that people had with the original designs. I know the stock of this rifle is a little bit smaller than the original. They upgraded things like the charging handle and so forth, and I think some of the other ergonomics. So I'm really excited to get a chance to take this particular firearm to the range and see if it's different than my original experience with the Tavor so many years ago. Now, I also want to give you guys a caveat about my thoughts on bullpups, because bullpups are not my favorite type of rifle to shoot by any stretch of the imagination. I actually think that they are inherently dangerous. Now, I'm not saying this rifle or any other bullpup that you may own is dangerous and you're going to get hurt by it. I'm just playing the odds here. We all know that very rarely, but it can happen, a rifle can go boom. You can have a catastrophic failure. We've all seen the videos of banana peeled barrels and receivers blowing up because of overpressured cartridges. And I have just never been a fan of having my face right up here next to the action. It's always kind of concerned me, especially having all of that gas and those cartridges being ejected from the ejection port right here by your face. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. I've also felt that in general bullpups have okay triggers, because you have to have some type of linking mechanism from the trigger that is up here all the way to the mechanism in the back, which means more pieces, longer pieces, and that often does not translate into a good trigger pull. So bullpups have just never had that appeal to me. I've never looked at them and go, wow, that's just an awesome design. I've always felt that they are a solution in search of a problem when guns like AR-15s, AK-47s, SIG MCXs, and the like do the job just fine. But I wanted to tell you guys that because maybe some of the comments I'm going to have in this video are tempered by the fact that I'm not a big bullpup fan. So I just try to be open and honest with you guys up front. But before we get into the things that I like and don't like about this rifle, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the person that lent this gun to the channel for me to review. He's a local fan and subscriber, and his name is Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack that has lent guns to this channel, so I'm just going to call him Jack number 2. Thank you once again, Jack. It's an absolute pleasure to shoot the awesome guns that you own and lend to the channel. I always want to thank my Patreon supporters as always, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. And if you guys want to join my Patreon and see all these videos early, you can do it for as little as $1 a month, and there's a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor for all of my range reports, because he provides the ammunition and makes all these range reports financially feasible for me to make. His name is Mark, and he's a great artisan craftsman who owns a grip company called Brownworks. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I've had many subscribers and many viewers of my channel go over to his website, buy a set of custom grips, and then contact me and go, Jason, I had no idea the quality of these grips was so high, and Mark's customer service is absolutely outstanding. And I'm saying, I told you guys, he is amazing. He's an artist, he's a craftsman. He's always coming up with new and innovative products for guns like Colt 1911s, Beretta 92s, CZ75s, fives and Browning high powers, just to name a few. He can make grips out of exotic woods, out of laminate woods. He can apply custom logos, custom textures, custom engravings, and he can even apply exotic things like snakeskin and alligator skin to your grips. Anything you can imagine, he can make. These are one-of-a-kind grips made to order to your specifications. So I'm going to ask you guys to go over to his website, see everything he has to offer. And if you don't find what you're looking for, please make sure to contact Mark. He'll definitely hook you up. And when you do, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk about the weapon that we're going to be shooting and reviewing today. And that, of course, is the IWI, or the Israeli Weapons Industries Tavor X95. This is the second generation of the Tavor rifle, which is one of the rifles that are fielded by the Israeli Defense Force. This particular model is in olive drab. As you can see, they do make it in a number of different colors. It is chambered in 5.56, and it's supposed to have a few upgrades over the originals. Really cool design. It's used by militaries and law enforcement around the world, and it is known to be an exceptional rifle in hostile environments, and one of the reasons why the Israelis use it in their defense force. Now, this particular model, of course, is only semi-automatic. Now, the ones that are used in Israel and by militaries, of course, are fully automatic. But I'm only going to review this from the perspective of an average gun guy. So if you're looking for some type of torture testing, you're not going to get that from me. We're just going to take this thing to the range and have some fun with it. But let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about this gun. And as always, I like to start with the positive first. And the one thing I really do like about this gun is that the company that makes it is thinking outside the box. Now, I know I said I didn't like bullpups, and that is true. However, I do give the company credit because they're trying to come up with something new and different. I've always felt that many of the designs of firearms today are kind of stale. When a company announces a new gun, it's pretty much a 2011 pistol. Like, okay, so that's pretty much a 1911 pistol that's double stack. We've had that for 100 years. Or a new polymer striker fired pistol. Okay, so you're just trying to redesign the Glock. Things are just kind of stale, but occasionally companies come out with stuff like this. It might not be something that is good or is going to catch on, but at least they're trying something new to make the world of firearms a better place for us all. Now, some people may love this design, some people may not. As I said, I'm not a big fan of bullpups, but I give IWI a lot of credit for thinking outside the box and thinking about the future of firearms. Three features about this rifle that I also really like, that I think they do well over many other bullpups. One is the magazine release right here. I recently reviewed the FNFS 2000, and its mag release is back here towards the magazine, but up here you can actually reach the magazine release with your index finger or your shooting finger, and I find that makes changing this magazine out a lot quicker and way more ergonomic. I really like the top rail on this particular gun. I know that many of the new generations of bullpups have them, but some of the older ones do not, but this rail seems to be really nice to give you tons of rail space. And I'm also a big fan of these backup iron sights, which I will be using in this review, that are built into that rail. They seem to be robust, they have lots of adjustments on them, and they do fold down into the rail. And you can hide those. I think they are perfect. I'm a big fan of iron sights on rifles. Even if you are running optics, I think it's really important that you have a set of quality irons on your rifle whenever you're taking them to the range or going to use them in any situation. So now let's talk about a couple things about this gun that I don't like. Well, actually, the first thing is going to be kind of a neutral thing, and that's going to be the trigger. I already talked about how the trigger on bullpups are kind of so-so, and it just has to do with the mechanism of having the trigger way up here and the action of the trigger actually being back here where the sear and the disconnector are. And often when you have such a disconnect between those two parts, it just loses something. These triggers are never super crisp, they're never super light, often they have a lot of grittiness to them. But this one actually is okay. You can actually stage this trigger, I think, better than many bullpup rifle triggers. So I'm gonna go ahead and adjust the camera. I wanna get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge and actually see what the weight of this trigger is, and then show you the reset on camera. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera, and let's do that now. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is what this trigger looks like with the reset and talk about its take-up. So let's go ahead and, of course, drop the magazine. Of course, ensure there's no ammunition in it. Then we're going to turn it over on this side and, of course, ensure there is no ammunition in it. And it looks like we are safe and good to go. So here is the initial take-up of the trigger. It's kind of heavy, kind of gritty, kind of makes a little bit of a sound. You have a decent wall. It's not as crisp as I would like. Then it breaks. Then let's take a look at this reset right here. Kind of long, but a nice tactile and audible click, but you are right back at that little bit of a spongy wall. It's not too bad. It's not too heavy. I've definitely felt worse in bullpups, but it's okay. So now let's go ahead and get out the trigger pull weight gauge, and let's actually see how heavy this trigger is. So let me go ahead and clear the averages here, make sure we're good. And then let's actually see how heavy the trigger is. And here we go. This is a little bit awkward on bullpups, but I'll do my best. And our first pull is 6 pounds, 15.7 ounces. So a little bit heavier than I think your standard AR-15, but not too bad. Our next pull, 6 pounds, 8.9 ounces. Six pounds, 0.9 ounces. Six pounds, 7.3 ounces. And finally, we have 6 pounds, 12.7 ounces, which gives us an average of 6 pounds, 9.1 ounces. So definitely not the lightest trigger, but not the heaviest trigger you can have in a gun like this. It's an okay trigger, but in general, it's a bullpup trigger, so it's not that good, but I will say it's better than many others. And that's why I say this is kind of a neutral attribute of this gun. All right, so that's all I can show you about this trigger. So let's get back to the rest of this range report and talk about the things about this rifle that I don't like. And so now let's talk about a couple things about this rifle that I don't like. In fact, it's not even things that this rifle has, it's things that this rifle does not have. And the first of those are any adjustments on the stock. And this is one of my general complaints of bullpups. If this stock does not fit you, you don't like the length of pull, you're really tall, really short, well, you are SOL. And this is where the AR-15, I think, really shines with its buffer tube. You have all that adjustment with the length of pull, and you can easily change those stocks out for different cheek heights and the like. This stock, you don't have any of that. And I'm not really sure why bullpup designers don't try to incorporate at least a little adjustment in it. I really wish this one had it. The other thing that this rifle lacks is a side-mounted bolt release. It has a bolt release here in the back, so if I lock the bolt open, you will notice it has a little lever right here. And to close the bolt, you have to push that down. And so if you're shooting, your hand has to come back here. And I'm a big fan of having a bolt release on the side somewhere, like an AR-15. And I really feel like this is a detriment to the design. Now, I understand putting something on the side of this gun like that might be an engineering challenge, but I'm sure it can be done and make the gun a lot more ergonomic. But yeah, if you want to release the bolt, you have to push that down. just like that. So not a big fan of that, something I don't like. All right, so I've talked a lot about this rifle, the things I like and don't like, so let's go ahead and get this thing to the range. And as always, I like to put the target at 10 yards at first, just to make sure this rifle is functioning, get a feel for what this rifle is generally all about, see if I discover anything about it that I like or don't like that I couldn't figure out here on the workbench. So let's just go to the range, let's have some fun with this, let's put a magazine through this, and let's get my initial thoughts. And I have to say, my initial impressions with this rifle are pretty darn positive. It seems to be pretty accurate. The gun is really well balanced, and I like these iron sights and this trigger. So far, it's just working for me. But unfortunately, there are a couple things that I did notice about this rifle that I do want to take note of. First, the gun does seem to recoil a little bit more than your standard AR-15. It's not bad or hurts or anything, but I think that's just part of the design of a bullpup. Maybe because the action is so far in the back and the bolt is so close to the end of the gun, there's just not as much as they can do when it comes to buffering that recoil. And unfortunately, this gun, like its predecessor, is honestly just as gassy. After that first magazine, I almost want to cry. Not because my marksmanship is so bad, but because there's just so much gas coming out of this ejection port into my face. It just kind of burns and stings a little bit. I don't know why they can't fix that. I've shot other bullpups without that issue, but this gun is just really gassy. All right, so now I want to double the distance on this target, going out to about 20 yards. I'm going to go for the head on this IDPA target, see what happens to this group, see if these iron sights continue to work just fine for me, and once again, see if there's anything about this gun that I discover that I like or don't like, and I'll report back to you. And this gun continues to be very accurate for me. I'm a big fan of the manual of arms because if you're an AR-15 shooter, it's pretty familiar with the exception of the lack of the bolt release. You have the magazine release on both sides as well as the safety selector switch in a very natural place. So if you like the AR-15's manual of arms, you're going to be able to adapt to this one pretty well. I have to say the overall length of pull on this stock for me is actually pretty good. So I am 6 foot tall and it works well, but I'm not really sure if you're really short or really tall how that would go. As I said, there are no adjustments, but for me, it's actually working pretty fine. And the gun continues to be really gassy. And for me, that's the big downside to this design. I kind of am liking this for a bullpup, except it's just too gassy, and I don't see any adjustments on this to adjust that gas block in any way. Maybe there is a way to do it if you take it apart, but as it sits here on the workbench, it's not like other guns where there's some type of lever up here in the front and you can adjust it. You just can't do it as far as I know. All right, so the next test I want to do is the bench rest test, and one of the downsides to bullpups is you don't really have a lot of space out here on the rail to put a bipod or to rest against a barrier. However, I'm going to try to do that with my range bag. And of course, this is only going to be at my indoor range at 25 yards. And yes, I know as a rifle, this thing can go out much further. However, a bullpup, in my personal opinion, has the philosophy of use as a CQB weapon. So I think testing it at 25 yards is perfectly adequate. But I know if you're a marksman and you have really nice optics, this thing can go out way further. But I'm just going to use the iron sights at 25 yards and see what the best group I can possibly get with this rifle is if I take as much of the human element out of the equation as possible. So here we go. Let's go back to the range and let's shoot this thing from the bench. And the more and more I shoot this rifle, the more and more impressed I am with it. It's a pretty darn accurate rifle for me with these iron sights. And this trigger for a bullpup is pretty nice. I can stage it well, and the break is very predictable. If it wasn't so gassy, this actually might be a bullpup that would change my mind on this design overall. Alright, so the next test I want to do is the quick magazine change test. And I have mentioned in the past, with the magazine button on the side, dropping the magazine is a piece of cake. However, reinsertion is a whole nother story. I think one of my viewers and subscribers said loading a bullpup is like reloading your armpit. And it kind of feels like that. It's kind of weird to be back here with the magazine instead of out here. This is one of the things about this design that I don't think is ergonomic and very natural. So let's go to the range. Let's see how fast I can do this. I'm just curious because this is a different way of having to reload a rifle than I'm mainly used to with ARs that I'm more accustomed to. So let's see how fast I can shoot this gun, drop the magazine, get a new one in, get the gun back in action, and how well I can shoot this gun really fast. Okay, and actually the reloads are a little bit faster than I thought that they would. Having a bolt release right back here where you insert the magazine is kind of a good idea because your thumb can just push up and activate it. I still wish though there was one on the side. Now let's talk about the accuracy. Now I have experienced this with the other bullpups that I have reviewed. Typically if I shoot these things slow and diligent, they're really accurate, way more accurate than you think they would be. However, when you start to shoot them fast, they're all over the place, unlike a gun like an AR-15 or an AK-47. I'm not sure if it's because it's a more compact weapon. I don't know if it's because the angle of the barrel as it moves and the recoil moves more because the barrel is further back and the chamber is further back. I'm not 100% sure. But when it comes to shooting these bullpups fast and semi-automatic, I am just not accurate with them at all. And I'm kind of embarrassed by that. But I just want to document my personal experiences, but every bullpup I've shot before this has kind of behaved exactly the same way. All right, so the last thing I want to do before I give you guys my final thoughts is just do a quick mag dump on this. I know, I always call it the gun porn. Essentially, I just want to shoot this thing as fast as I possibly can. And now that I know what to expect with shooting this gun fast, hopefully I can get a little bit better grouping. So here we go, one mag dump, and then I'll give you guys my final thoughts. And like I mentioned earlier in this range report, the trigger in this thing is actually pretty darn good. I can shoot this thing pretty fast, and I am very happy with that. However, the accuracy when I'm shooting it fast is all over the place, and it really is completely different than when I was shooting this thing slow. But as I mentioned, it's just one of those things that I have noticed with all of these bullpups. If I could shoot this thing more accurate fast, I think I'd be really, really impressed with it, but I am kind of disappointed in that. It also could be because the gun does recoil a little bit more than an AR-15, but there's something about it. Shooting it fast, it's just not accurate for me. So what are my final thoughts on the IWI Tavor X95? Well, compared to the other bullpups I have shot and reviewed, this one actually might be the one I like the most. But that's not really saying much because in general, I don't like bullpups. It's a very accurate rifle when I shoot it slow, and when I shoot it fast, it's like a shotgun pattern on the target. Absolutely terrible. The gun is exceptionally gassy, and I do wish we did have a side-mounted bolt release. But overall, many parts of this range report surprised me. The gun shoots really well if you're taking your time. I'm really liking how balanced it is. It's a very fun gun to shoot if you're not worried about going out to further distances and you're just having some fun at the range. I don't think for me it would be a great gun for CQB or home defense, but I definitely do think it is unique and interesting because of its design and its history. So I'm actually going to give this bullpup the highest rating I've given any bullpup, but once again, that's not going to be very high. I can be happy and give this thing 3 out of 5 stars. It's not an amazing review, but it's not bad either. I've reviewed others, I was like, ugh, this is not good at all. This one kind of surprised me, but it's still a bullpup. And like I mentioned, maybe in the beginning of this video, I kind of feel like bullpups are a solution in search of a problem. They're a cool idea, but I don't think these things provide any advantage that a standard gun with a standard design doesn't provide, and sometimes provide a little bit better. So it works, it's accurate slowly, it's a little bit hard to shoot fast, it's gassy, but it's comfortable. I think 3 out of 5 stars is very fair for the IWI Tavor X95. So what do you guys think? Have you ever shot one of these? Did you ever shoot one of the originals? And how do they compare for you? Do you guys feel that yours are as gassy as I feel this one is? I would love to know in the comments section below. So, as always, thanks for watching.